Hi everyone, Zach here, and welcome to lesson 26 in this series on developing a survival game. In this tutorial, we'll begin setting up our ability to equip items. That said, this series has been brought to you by my Patreon sponsors. And with all of that said, fire up your project and let's make a start. Hi everyone, welcome back to the editor, and in today's video we're going to do 4 things to start setting up the functionality of our equipment system. We're going to create an equipment structure, we're going to update our inventory system to account for our equipment system, we're going to add items to our inventory interface that will allow us to access some of those updates we're making today, and we're going to update our equipment master. So that said, let's start by going to our survival game, our core, our structures, and we have our inventory slots right here. Let's open up. We have this data. All we're going to do is we are going to duplicate this. This is going to be our F equipment slot singular. Let's pop this open. Let's pin this into the correct window. Thanks for not going into the correct window. That's on me though. And we're going to change our BP item master to our BP equipment master. Again, we want a class reference because the object won't exist at this point. It'll be in our inventory. There will be no object. We'll just need to know the class that we're storing. And we'll also need to know one more thing about this. And we're going to move that to the center here. And we need to know what sort of piece of equipment that is. So we're going to do our equipment type. And that'll be of our E equipment type enum. There we go. Let's just go ahead and save that. And we finished out our first step. Now, as a quick note, I want you to pay attention to the fact that this is our BP equipment master. Pay attention to how inheritance works. We'll talk about that later on. I'm going to intentionally make a mistake. Now, we won't see a bug from this mistake. You'll just see that something won't plug in somewhere, and I'll walk you through why that is. But I want you to think about what we talked about inheritance in the last section, because that's going to relate to that issue. All right, go ahead and close that out, and then we're going to go back up to our core, go to our actors, go to our inventory, and pop open the inventory. I'm going to right-click the event graph. I'm going to close all tabs to the right. And in here, what we're going to do is we're going to create a set of functions that are relatively similar to things we've already done. They're going to be very similar to this sort of stuff, and this sort of stuff, and a little bit to that. What we're going to do first is we're going to set our number of our equipment slots. So we're also going to set the type of equipment slots we have as well. So we have 2 things we need to do. We need to set the number we have and the type. So the first thing, let's create a new function called set number of equipment slots. Now we're going to put this in a category called equipment. And this is going to be similar to our inventory system, except we're going to have a set number. And so let's just go to our variables. Let's create a new variable called equipment slots. And we'll put this in a category called equipment settings. And it will be, of course, of our type F equipment slot. We will do an array of them. Now we could compile this and start adding in the number of slots we need. We're not going to do it that way, just in case you want to use a different number than me. We're just going to grab this, we're going to get it, and we're going to resize it. And we have a total of 7 slots we have to worry about. Head, body, legs, feet or hands, depending on which one you went with, and 3 weapons. That is 7 slots total. And we'll do a return node. And that takes us through that function. Let's go ahead and just call this up real quick before we forget to call it up. Let's also grab the right thing to do that. There we go. Next, we need to set the type of equipment slot. And remember when I said the order matters and we are not using a 0 in our enum? Well, this is why. We are setting the type based on its position. So what we're going to do is set equipment slot type. And we do this twice, actually. Once in the inventory system and once in our UI. And what we're going to do here is we're going to get our equipment slots. We are going to do a for each loop. Now you could do a for loop instead of a for each loop, and we already know the length is going to be 6. Yeah, 0 to 6, or 0 to 6 to 7. And what we're going to do is we're going to get our old friend back of index ref local. We're We actually now have two types of index refs, by the way. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And we are going to then create another local variable based off of this called our index to enum local. I'm going to just fix the typo on that, index to enum local 2. I'm going to now delete that too. And the reason why we're doing this is our index goes 0 to 6, 7 slots total. Our enum goes 0 to 4. Remember, there are 3 weapons. So we need to check if our index to enum is greater than 4. So what we're going to do is a branch, and if it is greater than 4, so let's grab our index enum local there. Wow, why aren't you lining up? There we go. We will do greater than 4, not greater than or equal to, just, or sorry, less than 4. We're doing less than 4, not greater than, less than 4. If it is not less than 4, in other words, it is greater than 4, then we are setting our index enum local to 4. Either way, what we're going to do then is grab our equipment slot here. And this is the other reason why you could do this by hand if you felt like it, is we're going to set array lm and just plug that into the true real quick. Put a lovely little reroute in and plug that into our set local there. And now I'm just going to grab those, line them back up a bit. I am going to go to my item and I'm going to split the structure. My index will be my index local. There we go. I'll move those up in just a moment. My item class will be left blank since nothing is being stored there. Our equipment type, this is where we have a bit of fun. Grab your index to enum local, do 2 byte. From 2 byte, pull off to the item equipment type and we'll convert byte to enum. And there we go. Just chuck those there. Bring these here. We are not going to size to fit. And that is everything that we really need to do for this one. So return. Again, this is to make sure that we are not accidentally setting an array or trying to set above our enum max. Otherwise you'll get some weird errors. All right, go ahead and call that up at the end of here. So now we have set our equipment type and our number of slots. We now need to be able to equip our items. Now, we're not going to do all the functions for this in this video. We will have the ability to swap items or swap equipment, discard equipment, etc. But we're going to do those in separate videos just because of everything that we have to do. What we are going to do now, however, is our base equip item master. So equip item master. So let's put this into our equipment. And again, we're following that similar structure to our previous setup if you haven't caught on to what's going on here, even though I've already said it. We need 2 things on our inputs. First, we need to know, actually, we're gonna put one on the output as well because it's already in Boolean. First, what we need to do is get our equipment class, and we're gonna use our BP equipment master, and again, we want a class reference. The second one is going to be an index ref, so our dear old friend is coming back, but it is going to be INV for inventory index ref. Like I said earlier, we're going to have 2 different indexes. One will be the inventory system, and one will be our equipment system. For this, we need to know where in our inventory we are taking the item from. Our return will be B equipped. All right. Let's take our class here and let's promote this to a local variable of class local. And then let's take our index here and we're going to promote this to a local variable of INV index local. Again, so I know which index I'm thinking about. This is the inventory index, not our equipment system index. And I am going to just very quickly comment this as inventory index so I remember. And comment this as set locals. From there, what we need to do is we need to check if the equipment slot is empty or not. Now, this is a bit different than our current inventory system. With equipment, if it isn't empty, we're going to swap the items out. We'll create actually a few more test items that I mentioned back in section 2 for this. but we'll do that later in this section. We're going to pause here to create a new function called check if equipment slot is empty. Jesus, that is a long name, but All right, so what we need to do is we need to know what sort of equipment we are passing through to our equipment system. So we're going to have one input, which is equipment type. Oddly, it is not our index, it's our equipment type enum. And we're going to promote that to a local variable of equipment type local. And we're going to do a for each loop with break. This is going to be a bit of a weird one though. It's not going to be like the last one we did. We're not going to just look for the first empty slot, because the first empty slot is going to be our head slot. And if we're trying to equip a rifle, well, and that head slot's empty, that's going to put the rifle there. So it's a bit different. And unless you want a rifle there, unless you have this Terminator-esque, suddenly a sword can go through somebody's head and they are equipped with a sword in the head. Yes, I am making a weird reference to Terminator 2. I also had an image when I first recorded this of a head splitting in half to reveal a rifle coming out of the throat. So unless you're doing something like that, this is a bit, you need to check where the equipment slot is or what type it is, and that if there's something there or not, and if there isn't, might there be another slot that we can use in place. So remember, 3 weapon slots. So that's what makes this a bit complex. What we're going to do is we're going to take our array element and we're going to promote to local variable. And this is a slot that we're currently looking at in our inventory system, our equipment system. Now, we are going to have a branch here, and we'll take care of the condition in just a moment. What we are going to do with this branch is we want to know, is the branch considered valid? So what is a valid branch? Well, a valid branch is a slot that has the correct storage capacity. In other words, a head slot can only store head-based equipment. A body slot can only store body-based equipment. So we're checking, is it a valid slot type? So we're going to break this, and what we need from here is our equipment type and amount and slot. So we're going to get rid of the item class. All right, so we're going to do off the equipment type equal. We want it to be equal to an enum. And what do we want it to be equal to? Well, we want it to be equal to the item type we're checking for, that we're trying to equip. And we're going to have another branch here. And I'll walk you through the logic for this in just a moment. But we're going to put one branch there. And we're going to duplicate that branch down here. Put a reroute in. All right. So what we're going to do is we come in. This will actually be false the first time. So we're going to check here. If this is true. By the way, I know I'm going to need some reroutes here, so I'm already putting them in place. If this is true, that we're trying to store the piece or the type of equipment, or trying to equip a type of equipment that fits that slot, then what we're going to do is we're going to set this to being something that's valid. You're going to do the same off of this one here. And again, this is because, hey, we have 3 weapon slots. If we didn't have 3 weapon slots, we could actually just drop these 2 branches. All right. So really quickly, I'm just going to promote this to a local variable, which is B is valid local. And I'm just going to break that for a moment. And we are going to set that to false down here. So again, let's say we're trying to equip a body armor. We come in the first time. We set this to body armor. We go to our first slot, which is our head slot. And this will be false the first time we come through. So we check, is this true? No, this is false. Okay, so we go down here. And then we check. All right, this slot is head, because that's the first slot. This is body. This is not true, so it's not valid. We come back in. We go, all right, second slot, which is body. Is this valid? No, it isn't. So we go here and go, is this valid? Yes, it is. And we go off the true branch. And our true branches, both of these, will remerge at another branch. This is Boolean logic for you. We're going to put a reroute here. And we'll put another reroute here just to make this a little bit nicer to look at. So next, what we're going to do is we are going to check, is the slot free or not? So all we're going to do is get the amount in slot, and we're going to check, is this slot equal to 0? Is the amount in the slot equal to 0? All right, let's put a few more reroutes in here. Line those reroutes up. If it is equal to 0, then we will do a new bool. Let's actually just create that real quick, called b is empty local. And this one will work a bit differently than our last set of is empties. We're going to set this to true here. We are going to set the is valid also to true, because remember, we now have passed our is valid check. And we are going to do the reverse of the is empty down here. It is not empty. Or sorry, it is not empty. And we are going to then do our is valid. Next, we need to get our equipment slot information. So we're going to take from this array index here and promote to variable, which is all the way on the other side of my screen, unfortunately, which will be our EQ index ref, or equipment index ref. And we're going to set this twice, by the way. So we're going to set it once here. And we're just going to duplicate this down here for a moment. And we're going to set it down here. Now, you might be going, well, why are you doing, only this part's different. Why are we doing these on two separate branches? You might be also wondering if I'm going to plug in that EQ into that other one down there. And yes, I am. So I'm just going to bring this way. And then I'm going to pull off of here and plug that into there. I'm going to add another reroute in, actually. There we go. Line those back up that way. Select that. Well, the reason for that is I'm going to come off this top one here. And I'm going to go to the break. And the reason for this is, again, the fact that we have multiple weapon slots. Let's think about it this way. We come in. We have a slot in weapon 1. So let's say we've gone through the first 3 slots. We're now on slot 4. And we go, is the slot valid? Well, the last slot wasn't, or we haven't set this to be true yet. So we're going to come through here and go, it's the right thing. So we're setting this to on the true now. We're going to see, hey, there's already something there. So we're going to go through here, and we're going to not break out. And we're going to go into the next one. Let's say our second slot weapon slot, slot 5, is free. And we're going to go, is it valid? Yep. All right. Is this the correct type of slot? Still true. If so, is it empty? And the second one being empty, it is. So we're going to use that slot instead. But let's say that all 3 slots are filled. We'll actually have a little bit of an issue here. We'll have to clean this up later on, but we're going to come through this branch. Or let's say that and this will be more for the equipment system. This part works perfectly fine for the armor side of it, not the weapon side yet. But we'll take care of the weapons down the road. Let's say we have body armor already equipped. It isn't free, but we will want to swap that information out with a new piece. So we're going to store the information. So if it's, head, body, legs, feet, the armor sort of stuff we're going to have, or utility or flashlight things we're going to have for the flashlight, then this information we still need. And we're only setting this is if this is all true elsewise. So this will be allowing us to switch between our equipment types. All right, that takes us through that particular function. All right, let's go back to our equip item master here. And we're going to get our check if slot is empty. And we're going to take our class local. We are going to get class defaults. And our class defaults is the equipment type, really. I mean, yeah, we have access to the other stuff that we're inheriting, but that class in particular has one default that it doesn't inherit, and that's our equipment type. I made a small mistake. Let's go back in here. I skipped a step, a very, 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 very important step. And that wasn't a joke. We need to do a return node, because I completely blinked on that. So I'm just going to type in return, put this return node down here for a moment, and I'm going to get my is valid. That's the first thing I care about. Is the slot valid? and it's just going to be is valid. I'm going to get my is empty. This one we care about in terms of how do we handle when the slot isn't empty. I mentioned discard stuff. Well, that's where that's going to come into play later on. And we're going to do our equipment index ref. Like I said, we're going to have 2 indexes we're working with. Here is number 2. All right. And I'm just going to tuck these under here to be nice, neat, and somewhat organized. All right, now we can go back to our equip item master. And in here, what we're going to do is we're first going to check is the is valid. If we haven't found anything valid ever, then all we're going to do is we're going to do a return. Could have just grabbed the return I left up there, but that return can go away. And we're going to fail out of here. That's all. If it is true, then what we want to do is another branch. We want to know, is the slot empty? All right. If it is not empty, then we will worry about that down the road. And what we'll be doing for that one is we'll be doing our swap equipment. Now, we'll take care of that, as I said, down the road. The first thing we're going to do, though, is handle what happens when the slot is empty. And that will be our equip item function, which is very similar to our add item function. So, all we have to do for this one is get our slots here. We are going to set array element, and let's break this open. We're gonna plug that into the true, by the way. Again, we're gonna collapse this down to a function, so I'm gonna just keep this to the far side for a moment. Anything that's directly under the array element here is going to be inside the function we're gonna collapse this down to. Anything I put to the left will be passed in as an argument. So we're gonna pass in the item class. We are going to pass in our equipment type. So where do we get our equipment type from? Well, our class. So I'm just gonna do get class defaults. Oh, not display name, sorry. Get class defaults. We're gonna pass that into there. And how much are we doing? Well, you know what? I'm gonna be a bit lazy about this. I actually am going to create a temporary local variable called delete me. And that's just to have that there. I'm gonna take these 2 nodes. I am going to collapse to function, and this will be our equip item. And the first thing will be our item class. The second one will be our equipment type. And the third one will be amount in slot. And now I'm going to break the amount in slot. I'm going to select the delete me. I'm going to delete it and delete it from there. And I'm going to default this out to 1. I'm going to bring that up there. I'm just going to tuck these underneath now. So that takes care of actually equipping the item. Now we're adding the item, we're actually equipping the item here. We've finished the equipment system, technically. If that's all you want to do is equip an item, there you go. Of course, we have no visual representation of this. So, hey, that's a bit of a problem. Let's go in here and clean this up, though, just so it's a little bit easier to look at. All right, we're going to add a return node in. There we go. Now, of course, there's some other issues that we need to take care of, and actually, technically, we haven't set up the equipment system fully in terms of, well, ignoring this false down there. What we haven't done is taken care of the actual removing the item from our inventory. So let's take care of that. But we have to do this in a very, very careful way. So what we are going to do is we are going to first have to store our item weight, then discard the item. So we have to store, as I said, the weight. Why are we storing the weight? Well, we're going to discard the item from our inventory and just bring it over to our equipment system. That way we're freeing up the slot. So if we go to our locals here, we have our index, inventory, index, local. Let's get it. And we also have somewhere in here, I think, our get item weight. Have we not created that yet? I'm just going to search because I can't remember if we created that. Get item. Yeah, we do. There's get item weight. It's under utility function. I'm not sure why that's not under item info, but okay. I'm just going to follow along with whatever I've done previously. All right, from there, we're going to promote this to a local variable called weight local. Now, I am going to do something that is going to make very little sense for right now. And this is because I know that in our UI, we need to update our UI. Remember I told you there's going to be a bit of a difference between how our inventory UI and our equipment system UI works because we spawn one in versus we have one already built. Well, because of that, we are going to just do something a bit different, in that we're going to create a new variable called B, so clearly a Boolean, item equipped. We are going to default it as false, but in this case, right at this stage, we're going to mark this as true. We are then going to set this to our bool category, mostly so I can reopen the bool category. We're going to set B was discarded as false, because we're actually not discarding it, we're using it. And then we're going to run our discard item. We are discarding 1 because we can only equip one thing at a time. We are discarding it from this inventory index reference that we have. And then, to make things even more confusing, we are duplicating our item equipped and setting it to false. We need this information just for a brief moment to be true, but then we need to make sure it goes back to false, otherwise we run into issues. I will talk about this when we get to the UI portion of it, why we've done that. All right, so what we're gonna do is comment this out, and this is, all we're doing here is store item weight, remove item from inventory, which reduces weight, and then we're gonna add weight back in. And actually, I probably should have done that part before I did the comments. Pull this out a bit, and what we're gonna do is we are going to get player character. From our player character, we can probably expand that down a bit more. There we go. We are going to trigger increase weight message. All right, now we could just plug the item weight in directly because it is a float, but I'm paranoid, and we're going to do a float times integer and make sure that the integer is 1 and that we're actually only adding in 1 item amount of weight back onto the character. With that done, we are done with this branch. And we can do our return node, and we can mark this as true. If we made it this far, we've equipped the item. All right, so our equipment system is all but done. We do have to worry about the discarding. We will have to update this for our weapons, as I mentioned. And the item discard will be, or item equipped will be related to our UI stuff. And we'll explore that one in more depth later on. I do realize right now this is doing absolutely nothing. Don't get me wrong, I do get that, but we will be using it later on. All right, as I mentioned, we have to update our interfaces. So let's go to our core interfaces, I inventory. And in our I inventory, we are going to do one new function. And this will be run equipment, or equip item master. All right, I'm just gonna close everything else out for now. And we're gonna add into this item equip master our, it's just an event, by the way. But first we're actually gonna make it a category, or put it in a category, equipment. We're gonna have 2 inputs. One will be our equipment class, and this is BP equipment master. Again, class reference, not object reference. And we're gonna have inventory index ref here as well. That dear old friend of ours. I did miss having to say index ref in nearly every video. And finally, to finish this out for now, what we're gonna do is go over to our, and this is, by the way, the error that I've intentionally said I'm gonna make is here now. We're gonna go to our actors item, equipment, equipment master. All right. Hey, I already put the onConsumed thing in here. Cool. That makes life a little bit easier. Remember, we're inheriting the onConsumed from the parent. What we are going to do now is get player character. All right. From player character, we are going to get I get inventory actor. Make sure it's the one that is target is I player character, not target is I inventory. Plug that into there. So our executes are plugged in. We are going to check is this valid, just to be on the safe side. So is valid. Do use the one with the question mark. If you want to put a branch in by hand, go for it. But hey, we have it here. If this is valid, what we're going to do is run equip item master. Now, technically we haven't set this up, so we'll go back in a moment and set that up properly. So, let's see. Well, we have our item class. Let's get that. Get item class. Let's pass that in. Wait, what? Why can't I pass that in? It wants the item class. This is the item. We're in the... Why can't I do that? All right, so yeah, clearly by my tone, this is the thing I told you I was going to intentionally get wrong. This, if you look over here in the grayed out area, is item master. This is looking for equipment master. Yes, we are in the equipment master, but we're inheriting this from our parent. We only set this when the item exists. So we have to go about getting that information a different way. So we're going to do self. We've got a reference to self. Remember self, for anyone who does C++, this. Self is this. For anyone else, self is the blueprint that we're currently in. All right, from there we can get class. All the children of this class will be of equipment master. Boom, we're good to go. All right, as for our index, we'll come from index ref here and plug directly into there. All right, line that up. We're going to select all of these nodes, including the 2 reroutes. We're going to collapse this down to a function. This function will be equip item. And I'm going to just name this index. INV index ref. All right, let's go in here. Let's line that back up. Let's return. And let's go back to our BP inventory. And in our BP inventory, we have to actually do our events here. So we have our was discarded. We have our trigger use item. Well, we also need to run equip item master. So run equip item master. We want the event version. So we get the actual input event here. Let's go to our functions. Also, let's move this into the equipment function, which kills 2 birds, 1 stone, opens that back up for me. And we have our equip item master that will run off of this, passing in this information. All right, there we go. We have now finished everything we need to do for this video. We can technically do a little bit of a test here. What we can do is, well, we can make the item vanish from our inventory. Let's hit play here real quick. Go full screen. Walk up to our head-mounted flashlight, which for some reason, there we go. It's out in my inventory. There it is, head-mounted screen, head-mounted flashlight. If I do equip, notice it vanishes. Now, nothing's going on here because we haven't set this up yet. That's what we'll be taking care of in the next video. But the key thing to notice there is my weight is still 1.5. So it's still registering I have picked up that item. All right, that takes us through everything we need to do in this video. This video in this series has been brought to you by Patreon sponsors like Rian, Quad Menson, Hanas, Connor, 1Vault10, and Galois. If you've liked this series or this video, please hit the like button down below. It really does help this channel out. It gets this video out to people who might not know about this series or this channel. And, by the way, I didn't eat more food because I'm already full. And if you want to be here when we start to finish out our equipment system, yes, this is a short section compared to our inventory section. Don't worry, section 4 is painfully long. It'll be subdivided into 3 sections. Make sure to hit the subscribe and notify icon. And if you want to copy this project, consider becoming a Patreon sponsor. Patreon sponsors at upper tiers get instant access to all ongoing YouTube projects and completed projects. At other tiers, Patreon sponsors get access once a project is completed. That said, I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.